They called my service dog fake and kicked her at a memorial for fallen firefighters. They tore my Medal of Valor off my jacket and made me prove my scars in front of everyone. I said nothing then. That was 6 months ago. Yesterday I faced them again at the memorial and watched them get thrown out while my dog sat calmly at my side, proving who the real heroes were. They've been cracking down on fake heroes at every firefighter memorial ceremony for months. And with my medication tremors and civilian clothes, I looked like every other wannabe firefighter trying to steal valor, at least in their eyes. I looked so pathetic that other firefighters avoided me, until someone whispered my story, then they'd salute, tears in their eyes. So when 2 fire department honor guard members quartered me at the memorial, I knew what was coming. The taller one pointed at my service dog, while the other pulled out his phone. He bent to my eye level, his face twisted in disgust, eyes locked on my Medal of Valor pin. His breath smelled like coffee and arrogance. Medal of Valor and a fake service dog? Real heroes don't show up to ceremonies pretending they need emotional support. He said it loud enough for the whole memorial garden to hear. His partner nodded, circling Bella like a predator, recording videos while shaking his head. I reached for my retired firefighter ID, but the tall guard slapped my hand away and spun me around so fast that Bella's leash tangled in my legs. I had to grip the memorial wall just to keep from falling. Then he dumped my bag onto the marble, kicking through my belongings like trash, scattering my medications across the names of the fallen. Stand up straight, he barked. Prove you're really disabled. I explained my PTSD. He sneered and told me to show my scars. When I pulled down my collar, he poked the melted skin with his finger like it was makeup. Then he crushed my anxiety medication under his boot, one by one, grinding each bottle into powder. Look at this, everyone. Another junkie playing dress up. He yanked open my jacket and ripped the medals off one by one, grinding them under his heel. He found my father's challenge coin and tried to snap it. Then he found the folded newspaper clipping from 20 years ago and laughed. Hero saves children? Definitely printed this from Wikipedia. He shredded it into confetti. A photo fell from my pocket. My crew from my station. The 5 who went into the fire with me. Only I came out. He held it up, tore it in half, and let the pieces scatter in the wind. Nice Photoshop job, he mocked. Almost looked real. I said nothing. I couldn't. My throat was full of smoke that wasn't there. 20 years dissolved. I was back in the fire, the firefighters screaming through the radio. My brothers were disappearing in front of me all over again. Other attendees started chiming in. A woman in designer clothes shook her head at my trembling hands. Real firefighters don't have panic attacks. Those burns? Probably a meth lab explosion. Someone pointed at Bella. Probably bought that vest on Amazon. The guard noticed my wedding ring. He grabbed my hand, examining the worn gold band. Your wife left because she couldn't stand looking at what you became. Your kids probably tell people their daddy died in that fire. Better than admitting he came out broken. My chest caved in. My daughters hadn't visited since the divorce, and for one terrible second, I believed him. Then his partner grabbed Bella's leash and yanked her away. She whimpered, nails scraping concrete as she tried to stay close. The tall one pulled me up by my collar, and I hit the ground hard. My head slammed into the marble, my jacket tore, and I lay there gasping like I was back in the kindergarten classroom. The world tilted. Smoke filled my vision. I could hear them again. 23 kindergartners screaming behind a wall of flame. The crowd didn't move. Some were filming. Others turned away in disgust. The guard kicked Bella in the ribs. She yelped and limped sideways. That sound was my undoing. She was the only reason for surviving year after year. So I crawled, hands bleeding on the memorial stones, dragging myself through scattered pills. All I could think was, get to Bella. And then a voice exploded behind us. That's the hero from Station U. Ignorant fucks. Chief Jackson stormed through, eyes murderous. The guards froze. The chief's voice dropped like thunder. He saved 47 children from the school fire 5 years ago, including my daughter. He jabbed his finger at them like a weapon. The tall guard's hand shook as he googled my name. And when he saw the headlines, he went white as ash. His phone clattered to the ground, screen cracking on the marble. They got fired within the hour, and Bella, bruised but unbroken, limped back into my arms. Her tail wagged once, weakly, and once everything was said and done, I planned on making them pay. Because insulting me or my dog is one thing, but hurting her is another. I spent the next 3 weeks in a haze of recovery and planning. My head still throbbed where it had hit the marble, and Bella moved slower than usual, favoring her left side where that boot had connected. The vet said nothing was broken, but watching her limp made my hands shake worse than any medication withdrawal ever had. Chief Jackson had called twice to check on me. He'd handled the official side of things, making sure those 2 guards lost their jobs and faced disciplinary action from the department. But that wasn't enough. Not for what they'd done to Bella. I started with research. Amazing what you can find online when you have nothing but time and simmering anger. The tall guard's name was Marcus Chen, 34 years old, married, 2 kids, worked part-time as a personal trainer when he wasn't playing dress-up in his honor guard uniform. His social media was full of gym selfies and motivational quotes about being a warrior. His partner was easier to track down. Ryan Fitzgerald, 26, still lived with his parents in the suburbs, posted constantly about his honor guard service, like it made him some kind of hero. Every other photo showed him at ceremonies, always with that same smug expression I'd seen when he circled Bella with his phone. I printed everything, their work schedules, their routines, their favorite coffee shops. Marcus went to the same gym every morning at 5 a.m. Ryan spent his evenings at a sports bar downtown, trying to impress women with stories about his service. My hands trembled as I organized the papers. Not from medication this time, from memory. The way Marcus had ground my pills into powder, the way Ryan had yanked Bella's leash, the sound she'd made when that boot connected with her ribs. I tried to sleep that night, but the smoke came back. Always the smoke. 20 years, and I still woke up choking on air that wasn't there. Still heard those kindergartners screaming behind walls of flame. flame. Bella usually helped, pressing against my chest until my breathing steadied, but now she moved carefully, protecting her injured side. The next morning, I drove past Marcus's gym, watched him swagger in with his protein shake and designer workout clothes. He looked so confident, so sure of himself. No tremors in his hands, no service dog by his side, no melted skin hidden under his collar. I followed him for a week, learning his patterns. He had a routine: gym, protein shake at the juice bar next door, then home to shower before his shift. Always the same route, always alone in the early morning darkness. Ryan was predictable too. Every Thursday night at O'Malley's, buying rounds for anyone who'd listen to his stories. I sat in the corner one night, baseball cap pulled low, watching him demonstrate how he'd taken down a faker at the memorial. He even mimicked kicking something, and the whole table laughed. My chest tightened, the room filled with smoke that wasn't there. I gripped the table edge until my knuckles went white, counting breaths like my therapist taught me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bella pressed against my leg under the table, and slowly the world came back into focus. I started small, found out where Marcus bought his protein powder. The shop had a loyalty program, and it only took a friendly conversation with a teenage cashier to learn about their new random quality check policy. Apparently someone had been calling in complaints about contaminated supplements. Marcus's favorite brand kept getting pulled from the shelves just before he arrived. He started showing up to work irritated, snapping at his fellow guards. I watched from across the street as he argued with his supervisor about being late. Again, Ryan's car developed mysterious problems. Sugar in the gas tank is amateur hour, but loosening battery cables? That's just unfortunate. He missed 3 shifts in 2 weeks, and I heard through the memorial ceremony regulars that he was on thin ice with the department. But it wasn't enough. Not for what they'd done to Bella. I dug deeper. Marcus had debts, big ones. His social media showed a lifestyle his honor guard and trainer salaries couldn't support. Designer clothes, expensive watches, private school for his kids. Credit card statements aren't hard to intercept when someone throws their mail in the recycling without shredding it. Ryan had secrets too. His browser history at the public library computer told interesting stories, dating sites where he claimed to be a full firefighter, not just honor guard, messages to women about his combat experience and saving lives, all lies built on stolen valor, worse than anything he'd accuse me of. I documented everything, screenshots, photos, financial records, built files on both of them thick enough to destroy the facades they constructed, but I needed to be smart about it. No authorities, no media attention. This had to stay personal. The nightmares got worse as I planned. Some nights I'd wake up screaming, back in that kindergarten classroom, children's voices mixing with the roar of flames. Bella would limp over, rest her head on my chest, and we sit there in the darkness until dawn. Both of us broken, both of us surviving. I practiced what I'd say when the time came, wrote it out, memorized it, tore it up, and started over. My therapist would probably say I was fixating, using revenge as a way to avoid processing trauma. Maybe she'd be right, but every time I saw Bella favor that left side, every time she flinched when someone moved too fast, the anger came back fresh. 3 weeks turned into a month. I knew their schedule was better than they did. Knew that Marcus's wife suspected his spending habits. Knew that Ryan's parents were starting to question why he was never actually fighting fires. Knew exactly how to make their carefully constructed worlds collapse. The morning I decided to act, Bella seemed to sense it. She stayed closer than usual, her warm weight against my leg as I reviewed my plans one last time. The files were ready, the evidence organized. All I had to do was execute. But first, I had to get past the tremors. Had to push through the smoke that filled my vision every time I thought about confronting them. Had to be stronger than the broken thing they'd left on the memorial stones. I looked at the Medal of Valor Chief Jackson had replaced, at the new copies of my father's challenge coin and crew photo, at all the things they'd tried to destroy. Then I looked at Bella, still loyal despite everything, still trusting despite the pain they'd caused her. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I'd start making them understand what they'd done. Not through violence or legal channels, through something far more personal, through the slow dismantling of everything they'd built on arrogance and cruelty. They thought they'd broken me, thought they'd exposed a faker, but they'd forgotten something important about real firefighters, something 20 years of PTSD and medication tremors couldn't erase. We don't leave anyone behind, not our brothers who died in the flames, not the children we saved, and especially not the service dog who'd kept us alive when the smoke threatened to take us too. Following someone to their gym at 5 a.m. and memorizing their protein shake routine, I mean, who hasn't done a little light stalking while planning their revenge, right? The part where he's sitting in the corner of the bar watching Ryan act out the dog kicking like it's his greatest hits performance is just, wow, Buddy really thinks that's his crowning achievement. Marcus and Ryan were about to learn what happened when you kicked a hero's dog. They were about to understand that some forms of justice didn't come from courtrooms or disciplinary boards. Some justice came from the careful, methodical destruction of everything you'd built on lies. The first phase of my plan started with Marcus Chen's gym routine. I arrived at 4:45 a.m., 15 minutes before he usually showed up, and positioned myself near the juice bar entrance. My hands shook as I gripped the steering wheel, but this time the tremors came from anticipation, not medication withdrawal. Marcus pulled into the parking lot at exactly 5:02 a.m. in his black BMW, the one he couldn't afford. I watched him check his reflection in the side mirror before heading inside. Always the same vanity, the same swagger that reminded me of how he'd stood over me at the memorial. I waited 10 minutes, then entered the juice bar next door. The teenage cashier recognized me from my previous visits and waved. I'd been coming here every morning for 2 weeks, establishing myself as a regular, learning the patterns. Marcus always ordered the same thing after his workout: large protein shake, extra whey, no banana. While the cashier prepared my order, I casually mentioned seeing someone leave their wallet in the gym parking lot. She immediately perked up, concerned about a customer losing something important. I described Marcus perfectly, down to his designer workout gear. She nodded enthusiastically and promised to check with him when he came in. An hour later, I watched from my car as Marcus stormed out of the juice bar, patting his pockets frantically. He'd spent 20 minutes arguing with the staff about his stolen wallet, demanding to see security footage that didn't exist. The cashier had been so helpful, so concerned, repeatedly asking if he was sure he'd brought it with him. His wallet sat in my glove compartment, removed from his gym bag while he bench pressed. Not stolen, technically, just temporarily misplaced. I'd return it eventually, after he'd canceled his cards and dealt with the inconvenience. After he understood what it felt like to have someone go through your belongings without permission, Ryan Fitzgerald required a different approach. His Thursday night routine at O'Malley's presented opportunities, but I needed to understand him better first. I spent 3 evenings observing from different vantage points, nursing the same beer for hours while he held court at the bar. He had a type. Young women, usually alone, always impressed by his embellished stories. He'd flash his honor guard badge, talk about serving the community, and hint at dangerous situations he never actually faced. The real firefighters in the bar avoided him, but the civilians didn't know the difference. I started leaving anonymous reviews on the bar's social media pages. Nothing defamatory, just observations. How strange it was to see someone in partial uniform drinking heavily. How uncomfortable it made other patrons when he cornered women with his stories. How his loud demonstrations of firefighting techniques disrupted the atmosphere. The bar manager started paying attention. I watched him observe Ryan more closely, saw him pull the bartenders aside for quiet conversations. Within 2 weeks, Ryan found his usual seat occupied, his favorite bartender suddenly too busy to chat, his audience mysteriously dwindling. But these were just preliminaries, irritations. I needed them to feel what I'd felt that day at the memorial. The helplessness, the humiliation, the rage of being powerless while someone destroyed what mattered most. Bella's limp had improved slightly, but she still favored her left side during our morning walks. Every careful step she took reminded me why I was doing this. She'd been my anchor through 20 years of nightmares, and they'd kicked her like she was nothing. I expanded my research. Marcus had a wife, Catherine, who worked as a dental hygienist, 2 kids in private school, a mortgage on a house beyond their means. His social media showed expensive vacations, designer clothes, the latest electronics, all financed by maxed out credit cards and personal loans. The key was his side business, personal training clients who paid cash. Income he didn't report. I documented everything. Client names, session times, payment amounts. The IRS might be interested, but that felt too impersonal, too official. This needed to stay between us. Ryan's vulnerability was simpler. He lived for validation, for the image he'd created. Take that away, and he had nothing. No real accomplishments, no actual service record to fall back on. Just a 26-year-old playing dress up, living with his parents, pretending to be something he wasn't. I created anonymous social media accounts and began sharing photos from that day at the memorial. Not the whole story, just carefully cropped images. Ryan circling an injured service dog. Marcus grinding medication under his boot. No context, no accusations, just the images, tagged with the fire department's official accounts. The post gained traction slowly. Other memorial attendees recognized the scene, added their own comments. Someone mentioned seeing a veteran on the ground. Another recalled the service dog's yelp. The fire department's social media team took notice, started asking questions. Marcus noticed first. I was parked across from his gym when he came storming out, phone pressed to his ear, gesticulating wildly. His workout had been cut short. Something had upset him enough to break his sacred routine. I followed at a distance as he drove to Ryan's house, watched them argue in the driveway. Marcus kept showing Ryan his phone, pointing at the screen. Ryan shook his head, threw his hands up, went back inside. Their partnership was already fracturing. The tremors in my hands had calmed over the weeks of planning. Having a purpose, a goal beyond just surviving each day, had given me something I hadn't felt in years. Control. The smoke still came at night, but now I had something to focus on when it cleared. I decided to escalate. Marcus's wife, Catherine, deserved to know where their money really went. Not through anonymous letters or dramatic revelations, but through careful seeds of doubt. I started frequenting the coffee shop near her dental office, becoming just another regular in the morning rush. Small conversations over time. Mentions of seeing her husband at the gym, how dedicated he was to his training, how impressive it was that he could afford such nice workout gear on a city employee's salary, how lucky his personal training clients were to have someone so committed. Catherine's expression changed subtly each time. The way her smile tightened when I mentioned the expensive gear. How she paused before responding about his training schedule. The questions forming behind her eyes about hours and the income that didn't quite add up. Ryan required a different touch. His parents were good people, working class folks proud of their son's honor guard service. They didn't deserve to be hurt, but they needed to understand who their son really was. I started attending the same church they did, sitting a few pews back, just another face in the congregation. After services, I'd chat with other attendees about the memorial ceremonies, how moving they were, how important it was to honor real heroes, how disturbing it was when people disrespected veterans, especially those with service animals. The conversation spread naturally through the congregation. Ryan's mother started asking him questions. I overheard her one Sunday wondering why he spent so much time at bars instead of actual fire department activities. Why he never talked about real emergency responses. The doubt was creeping in, slow but steady. Marcus cracked first. I was watching his house one evening when he came storming out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Catherine stood in the doorway, holding what looked like credit card statements. Their voices carried across the quiet street, her demanding answers about personal training income, him deflecting with increasing desperation. He spent that night at the gym, sleeping in his car in the parking lot. I watched him try to clean up in the bathroom the next morning, saw the exhaustion in his movements. The perfect routine was broken. The carefully maintained image was cracking. Ryan's situation deteriorated differently. The social media posts had reached former Honor Guard members who recognized the incident. They started sharing their own stories about his behavior, his tendency to exaggerate his role, his disrespect for actual veterans. The fire department launched a formal review of the incident. I attended the next memorial ceremony, keeping to the shadows, watching Ryan try to maintain his position. Other guards kept their distance. Attendees whispered when he passed. He stood alone at his post, the isolation visible in his rigid posture. But I'd made a mistake. In my focus on justice, I'd underestimated their desperation. People backed into corners do unexpected things, and I'd backed both of them into very tight corners. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. I was walking Bella in the park near my apartment, following our usual route. She'd been moving better lately, the limp barely noticeable. I'd relaxed my guard, focused on her recovery instead of watching my surroundings. Marcus appeared from behind a maintenance shed, moving fast. Before I could react, he'd grabbed Bella's leash, yanking it from my hand. She yelped, the sound triggering every protective instinct I had. But Ryan was already there, stepping out from the other side, blocking my path. They'd planned this, coordinated their response. I'd pushed them too far, too fast, and now they were pushing back. Marcus held Bella's leash tight, keeping her just out of reach while she whimpered and pulled toward me. Ryan stood between us, fists clenched, the same rage in his eyes I'd seen at the memorial. The confrontation was brief but vicious. Ryan shoved me hard, sending me stumbling backward. My medication tremors made it hard to keep my balance, and I went down on the gravel path. The impact sent pain shooting through my still healing ribs. Marcus laughed, the same cruel sound from the memorial. He wrapped Bella's leash around a bench, leaving her straining against it while he joined Ryan in standing over me. 2 against 1, just like before. Only this time there was no Chief Jackson coming to save me. They laid out their terms clearly. Stop whatever I was doing. Delete the social media posts. Stop talking to their families. Stop showing up at their places. Or next time Bella wouldn't be so lucky. The threat was explicit, the meaning clear. I stayed on the ground, playing the broken veteran they expected to see. Let them think they'd won. Let them walk away feeling powerful. But inside, something had shifted. They'd threatened Bella again, made the same mistake twice. After they left, I held Bella close, checking her for injuries. She was scared but unharmed, pressing against me for comfort. We sat there on the path for a long time, her warmth grounding me as I processed what had happened. They thought they'd intimidated me into silence. They thought the broken firefighter with PTSD would crawl away and hide. They'd forgotten that I'd run into burning buildings when everyone else ran out. They'd forgotten that fear was just another obstacle to overcome. The game had changed. They'd escalated to physical confrontation, to direct threats, but they also revealed their desperation, their coordination, their weakness. They were scared enough to work together despite their fracturing partnership. Scared enough to risk another assault. I adjusted my strategy. No more indirect pressure. Oh man, 2 grown-ass men ambushing a guy and his dog in a park like they're planning a middle school fight behind the bleachers. I love how Marcus and Ryan went from tough guys at memorials to basically becoming the world's worst detective duo, complete with hiding behind sheds and coordinating their big scary confrontation. Their master plan is stop being mean to us or we'll hurt your dog. Real genius level thinking there, boys. No more slow erosion of their lives. They'd made this personal again, and personal required a different approach. They'd show me they were willing to hurt Bella to protect themselves. That knowledge changed everything. I spent the next week preparing, not for revenge, but for resolution. They needed to understand that their actions had consequences, that their threats only strengthened my resolve. But I had to be smart about it. Had to use their desperation against them. Marcus's financial situation was imploding. Catherine had kicked him out, and he was burning through cash staying in hotels. His personal training clients were disappearing as word spread about his debts. The perfect image he'd cultivated was in ruins. Ryan's review with the fire department was going poorly. Multiple witnesses had come forward about the memorial incident. His social media presence, once his pride, had become evidence against him. His parents' disappointment was evident in their strained interactions at church. I started leaving them messages, not threats, just observations. Photos of Marcus sleeping in his car, screenshots of Ryan's dating profiles with their false claims, evidence of their lies, delivered to their phones at unexpected moments, reminders that I was watching, that I knew everything. The psychological pressure was working. Marcus started making mistakes at the gym, dropping weights, snapping at clients. Ryan began drinking more heavily at O'Malley's, his stories becoming sloppier, his desperation more obvious. They were unraveling, and they knew I was the cause. The final phase required precision. I needed them together, needed them to make a choice. So I sent them both the same message. Meet me at the memorial where this started, or everything I have goes public. Their debts, their lies, their assault in the park, everything. They showed up, of course. Desperation made them predictable. I waited by the wall where they'd humiliated me, Bella steady at my side. She wasn't limping anymore, her strength returned. We'd both healed, both found our resolve. Marcus arrived first, his BMW sputtering on fumes he couldn't afford to replace. His designer clothes were wrinkled, his perfect image tarnished. Ryan came minutes later, his parents' car because his own still wouldn't start reliably. They stood together but apart, their partnership strained to breaking. I laid out my terms simply. Leave the fire department, both of them. Resign from the honor guard, find other work, never wear the uniform again. In exchange, I'd destroy the evidence, delete the files, let them rebuild their lives elsewhere. They could start over, but not as false heroes. The alternative was everything going public. Every lie, every debt, every shameful secret. Their families would know everything. Their employers would receive detailed documentation. Their carefully constructed identities would be demolished completely. Marcus broke first. The financial pressure, the collapse of his marriage, the loss of his image, it was too much. He agreed through gritted teeth, his hands shaking with rage, but his options exhausted. He knew I had him cornered. Ryan held out longer, clinging to his fantasy of being a hero. But when Marcus turned on him, revealing Ryan's lies to save himself, the younger man crumbled. They turned on each other viciously, each blaming the other for their situation, their partnership dissolving into mutual accusations. I watched them implode with grim satisfaction. Not because I enjoyed their pain, but because justice required consequences. They'd attacked a veteran with PTSD and kicked his service dog. They'd threatened us again when cornered. Now they were facing the results of their choices. Their resignation letters were submitted within a week. Marcus found work as a regular personal trainer. No uniform to hide behind. Ryan moved back in with his parents permanently. His dreams of glory reduced to job applications at retail stores. Their honor guard days were over, but my victory felt hollow. The anger that had driven me for months began to fade, replaced by the familiar weight of trauma. Without the focus of planning, the nightmares returned full force. The smoke, the screams, the faces of my lost brothers. Bella knew, as she always did. She pressed closer during the bad nights, her steady breathing, a reminder that we'd survived. We'd faced our attackers and won, but the real battle was still internal, always had been. Chief Jackson called one afternoon, his voice carefully neutral. He'd heard about the resignations, about the circumstances surrounding them. He didn't approve of my methods, but he understood. Sometimes justice came from unexpected directions. He invited me to the next memorial ceremony, promised I'd be welcomed properly this time. No harassment, no questions about my service, just respect for what I'd sacrificed and recognition for what I'd saved. It was an olive branch, a path back to the community I'd lost. I thought about it for days, weighing the invitation against my fear of crowds, of judgment, of being vulnerable again. The tremors were still there, the medication still necessary. The PTSD hadn't magically disappeared with my victory over Marcus and Ryan, but Bella deserved better than hiding. She stood by me through everything, faced danger because of my choices. Maybe it was time to stop letting fear dictate our lives. Maybe facing the memorial again, properly this time, was the real victory. The morning of the ceremony, I put on my dress uniform for the first time in years. The medals Chief Jackson had replaced gleamed against a dark fabric. My father's challenge coin sat heavy in my pocket. Bella wore her service vest proudly, no trace of her former limp. We drove to the memorial as the sun rose, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, but not from medication this time. From anticipation, from hope, from the possibility of reclaiming something I thought lost forever. The parking lot was already filling with firefighters and families. Some recognized me, nodding respectfully. Others simply saw a veteran with his service dog, returning to honor the fallen. No one questioned my right to be there. I stepped out of my car, Bella at my side, and immediately spotted trouble. Marcus Jen stood near the memorial entrance, no longer in uniform, but wearing a suit that screamed desperation. His eyes locked into mine with unmistakable hatred. Ryan Fitzgerald lurked by the flagpoles, fidgeting with something in his pocket. They weren't supposed to be here. Their resignation letters had been clear about staying away from department events. But desperation makes people stupid, and these two had nothing left to lose. I kept walking, maintaining steady eye contact with Marcus. Bella tensed beside me, sensing the threat. Other firefighters began noticing the standoff, conversations dying as tension rippled through the gathering crowd. Marcus moved first, intercepting my path with calculated precision. His hand shot out, not to strike, but to grab my Medal of Valor, the replacement Chief Jackson had given me. His fingers closed around it, trying to rip it from my uniform. I caught his wrist, my grip surprisingly steady despite the tremors. We stood frozen for a moment, locked in this absurd tug-of-war over a piece of metal that meant everything and nothing. Around us, firefighters began closing in, confused by the confrontation. Ryan appeared at my side, phone already recording. He'd learned nothing, still trying to create evidence, still believing he could spin this story his way. His voice carried across the memorial grounds as he narrated his version of events, painting me as the aggressor. But something had changed since our last encounter. The other firefighters weren't buying it. They'd heard about the original incident, about the resignations, about what these two had done. Whispers spread through the crowd, and the circle around us grew tighter. Marcus released the medal suddenly, causing me to stumble backward. He'd planned it, making it look like I'd shoved him. Ryan's camera caught the perfect angle, the moment that could be edited to show violence where none existed. They were still trying to destroy me, even after losing everything. I straightened my uniform, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on me. The smoke was creeping into my vision, the familiar tightness building in my chest. 20 years of PTSD doesn't disappear just because you've won a battle. The kindergartner's screams echoed in my memory, mixing with the present moment. Bella pressed against my leg, grounding me. Her steady presence reminded me why we were here. Not for revenge anymore, but for recognition. For the right to stand among my brothers without shame. Chief Jackson emerged from the administration building, his expression darkening as he took in the scene. He'd warned them to stay away. The resignation agreements had been explicit, yet here they were, violating the terms and disrupting a sacred ceremony. Marcus saw the chief and panicked. His carefully planned manipulation crumbled as he realized the consequences of showing up. He turned to the crowd, desperate now, and began his performance. He talked about unfair treatment, about being forced out, about corruption in the department. The firefighters listened in stony silence. These were men and women who'd run into burning buildings, who'd held dying strangers, who'd seen the worst humanity had to offer. They could smell lies like smoke on the wind. Ryan tried a different approach. He pulled out printed screenshots, waving them like evidence. The social media posts I'd made, the documentation of their lies. He spun it as harassment, as stalking, as a vendetta by a mentally unstable veteran. His voice grew more frantic with each word, but he made a critical error. In his desperation to paint me as the villain, he'd brought proof of his own false claims. The dating profiles where he'd claimed to be a full firefighter, the messages about combat experience he'd never had, the evidence of his stolen valor, printed and distributed by his own hand. A veteran firefighter picked up one of the papers Ryan had dropped. His face hardened as he read. He passed it to another, who passed it to another. The murmur that went through the crowd wasn't sympathy for Ryan, it was disgust. Marcus grabbed Ryan's arm, hissing something urgent. They needed to leave. Their plan had backfired spectacularly, but Ryan wasn't done. He'd invested too much in his false identity to give up now. He turned to me directly, his face twisted with rage, his mouth open, ready to unleash whatever final accusation he'd prepared. But before he could speak, Bella moved. She didn't attack, didn't growl or bare her teeth. She simply walked forward and sat directly between Ryan and me, her back to him, facing me with absolute loyalty. The message was clear, he wasn't worth her attention. The crowd saw it. This trained service dog, who'd been kicked and injured by these men, showed more dignity and restraint than they ever had. Someone started slow clapping, then another, then dozens of firefighters were applauding, not for the confrontation, but for Bella's quiet demonstration of character. Marcus and Ryan stood isolated in the center of the memorial, surrounded by the community they'd tried to infiltrate with lies. No one spoke to them, no one acknowledged them beyond the wall of disapproval. They'd wanted to be heroes so badly they'd attacked a real one. Now they faced the consequence they feared most, irrelevance. Chief Jackson approached them with 2 security officers. The conversation was brief and one-sided. They were trespassing, violating their resignation agreements, and disrupting a memorial ceremony. They could leave voluntarily or be removed, their choice. I love how Bella just walks up and sits down with her back to Ryan like, "You're not even worth a tail wag, sir." That slow clap starting up must have felt like being the villain in a high school movie, where everyone suddenly realizes who the real jerk is. Marcus left first, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The designer suit couldn't hide what he'd become, a man who'd lost everything chasing an image. Ryan followed, still clutching his phone, still recording nothing that would save him. They walked to their cars alone, watched by the entire firefighter community they'd once tried to impress. I stood there shaking, not from medication this time, but from adrenaline. The confrontation had triggered every PTSD response I had. But I'd stayed standing. I'd faced them without violence, without losing control, without becoming what they'd accused me of being. The ceremony proceeded as planned. I found a spot near the back, preferring the shadows to the spotlight. Other veterans nodded as they passed, quiet acknowledgments of shared understanding. No one made a fuss. No one treated me as special. I was just another firefighter honoring the fallen. During the reading of names when they reached my station from 20 years ago, I felt the familiar tightness in my throat. 5 names, 5 brothers who didn't make it out. The smoke filled my vision, but this time I didn't fight it. I let the memory come, let the grief wash over me, let Bella's presence anchor me to the present. After the ceremony, firefighters approached in small groups, not to offer pity or make grand gestures, but to share their own stories. A captain talked about his panic attacks. A paramedic mentioned her service dog. A rookie admitted he took medication for anxiety after a particularly bad call. We were all broken in some way. That's what made us brothers. Catherine Chen appeared as I was preparing to leave. Marcus's soon-to-be ex-wife looked exhausted but determined. She thanked me quietly for exposing the truth about their finances. She'd suspected for years but needed proof. The divorce would be finalized soon, and she could start rebuilding without his lies. Ryan's parents were there too, standing awkwardly by their car. His mother had tears in her eyes. She apologized for her son's behavior. They'd raised him better than this, she said. They didn't understand where they'd gone wrong. I had no answers for her. Some people choose their own path, despite every advantage. The parking lot slowly emptied as the sun reached its peak. I sat in my car for a moment, processing what had just happened. Marcus and Ryan had tried one last manipulation. One final attempt to destroy what they couldn't have. They'd failed because the truth has a weight that lies can't match. Bella curled up in the passenger seat, finally relaxing after the morning's tension. Her tail wagged once as I started the engine. We'd faced our demons and won, not through revenge or violence, but through simple endurance. Through refusing to be broken by those who'd never been tested. The drive home was quiet, no music, no radio chatter. Just the sound of the engine and Bella's steady breathing. The tremors in my hands had calmed. The smoke had cleared from my vision. For the first time in months, I felt something approaching peace. That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony, watching the sunset. Bella lay beside me, no longer favoring her injured side. We'd both healed in our own time, in our own way. The physical wounds were easiest. The mental ones would take longer, but that was okay. I'd been fighting them for 20 years. I could keep fighting. My phone buzzed with a message from Chief Jackson. The department was implementing new policies for memorial ceremonies, better screening for those claiming service. Marcus and Ryan's actions had led to positive change. Even if that hadn't been their intention, sometimes good comes from the worst situations. I deleted the files I compiled on them, the screenshots, the financial records, the evidence of their lies. They didn't matter anymore. Marcus and Ryan would have to live with their choices, find new paths forward without the false identities they'd built. That was punishment enough. The nightmares would come again tonight. They always did. I'd wake up choking on smoke that wasn't there, hearing screams from 20 years ago. But Bella would be there, steady and patient, reminding me that I'd survived, that I'd saved who I could, that being broken didn't mean being worthless. I thought about the kindergartners from the fire, 47 lives that continued because I'd run in when others ran out. They were adults now, living their own lives, probably never thinking about the scarred firefighter who'd carried them to safety. That was as it should be. Heroes don't need recognition. They just need to know they did their job. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The PTSD wouldn't magically disappear, the medication would still be necessary, the tremors would continue, but I'd face it all with the dignity Marcus and Ryan had tried to steal. I'd wear my uniform to the next ceremony, stand among my brothers, and honor those who didn't make make it home. Bella stirred beside me, her head finding its way onto my lap. I stroked her fur gently, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing. We'd protected each other through the worst of it. Now we could focus on healing, on moving forward, on finding meaning beyond the trauma. The stars began appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably trying to salvage his personal training business. Ryan was likely filling out job applications, learning what real work meant without a uniform to hide behind. They'd find their way or they wouldn't. It was no longer my concern. I stood to go inside, Bella rising smoothly beside me. No limp, no hesitation. We moved together toward the apartment, two survivors who'd refused to be victims. Tomorrow would bring what it brought. Tonight, we'd rest knowing we'd faced our tormentors and emerged with our dignity intact. The metal on my uniform caught the last light of day as I hung it carefully in the closet. It wasn't about the metal or the recognition. It was about what it represented, the willingness to run into hell for strangers. Marcus and Ryan had wanted the glory without the sacrifice. They'd learned that some things can't be faked. I repaired Bella's dinner, watching her eat with the enthusiasm of a dog who'd never known hardship. She'd been kicked, threatened, used as leverage against me, yet she still trusted, still loved, still served. There was a lesson in that resilience I was still learning. My therapist would want to hear about today's confrontation. She'd probably have insights about closure and moving forward. But for now, I just wanted to sit in the quiet of my apartment, Bella at my feet, and appreciate the simple victory of survival, of refusing to be broken by those who'd never understood what real service meant. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but no longer dark. I'd continue attending ceremonies, continue honoring my fallen brothers, continue living with the weight of survival. But I'd do it on my own terms, surrounded by those who understood the cost of heroism. Marcus and Ryan had given me that gift through their cruelty. They'd reminded me who I really was, beneath the trauma and tremors. A firefighter, a survivor, a man who'd saved 47 children and lost 5 brothers but kept going anyway. That was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Well, that's the most peaceful ending after all that drama. This whole story went from let me mess with the quiet guy to oops, we picked the wrong quiet guy real fast. Thanks for reading this wild ride with me. Subscribe for more.